Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so I'll keep track of people as they come in, but let's get started. So I don't think we actually have anybody attending who hasn't been to one of these before, so I'll dispense with the Robert Rule of Order stuff. I would just ask people, to raise their hands either by using the reactions in the hand raise tool or just by waving at me when we get into discussions and questions so I don't miss anybody. I'd like to remind the board that we have a big agenda as it looks on paper, but the goal is to just take questions and get comments on everything rather than do presentations, so dialogue will be good, with the exception of the progress towards professionally staffed CAN, which Patrick will give to us orally. He had personal family conflicts that got in the way of writing anything up, but he'll give you an update on that. So first on the agenda item is the consent agenda. Can I get a motion from somebody to approve the consent agenda? Okay, Dan, you moved. Can I get a second? Debbie's the second. Excellent. Any questions? Any concerns? Pretty simple. Joe did a nice job of writing an annual report, so you know what all happened last year from a monetary standpoint. Okay, no questions. Anybody opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. Next item is my turn on the 2023 plan. So I want to make a statement before I take questions. While we're moving forward with funding, seeking funding for professional staff, it's important that we limit our activities to those which are ongoing. The people who are volunteered to be on the professional staffing team are working hard, and it's all of the executive committee people are on that team as well, so we all have assignments. Equally important during this time is that we keep and maintain collaborative relationships with our members, other organizations we work with, government staff, and elected officials. That's important because we'll be working with funders. They'll be looking at who we've done work with. They'll be looking for recommendations and that sort of thing. So the relationships we've built, the ones that we've worked hard for in other organizations, the city staff, and that sort of thing, it's important we retain those at this time so that we don't lose some of our strongest collaborators who have told us over and over again that we could be even more effective if we are professionally staffed and properly funded. So I would just ask all board members to think about that before you, say anything on behalf of CAN to anybody we've worked with that would do anything to harm that relationship. It's important. We've all agreed that this is the step to take CAN to the next level, so let's not mess it up in the short term. With that headline as a statement, I'm assuming that everybody has read the first document that's in the thing. Does anybody have any questions about next step with CAN, specifically the fact that we're only going to plan on having board meetings every other month, and we're going to not have general membership meetings unless some topic of urgency comes up that would be appropriate. And of course, if we get some progress from something that requires a board vote, we can call a meeting more frequently than that. But that was the basis of what I had to share with everybody. Any thoughts or questions, please? Okay. Then that will be the plan. I will, to clean up all of your digital calendars, I will cancel the off-month meetings so that you're not confused when we're going to have them. So we're having January, we'll be skipping February, and we'll meet again in March. And then again in May, which will be the annual meeting and elections if we haven't already found funding and that sort of thing. You'll also notice in what I wrote that there are a couple of committees that need to be set up. One committee to be set up is the one for figuring out donations or dues. So we'll be organizing that and seeking people to be a part of that. And what was the other one? I don't have the document in front of me. Hang on a second.
That number 6, Rick, next steps,
Yeah,
funding and executive director not to be in place at the time of the May 2023.
right. Thanks, Sharon, for helping me. I'm a little burned out today already. So the executive committee will reach out to the board when it looks like we don't feel like we're going to have a full-time person in place to sort of pick up the reins, because that committee will need to figure out what we're going to do as an interim in order to keep us alive and well. The board needs to create a proposal, a committee to define a proposal for membership dues or things. Can I get volunteers to be on that committee? Let's say 3 people maximum. Okay, I got one hand. That's Margit, right? Margit and Debbie.
Barbara.
And Steve Rasmussen raised his hand. So I'm gonna keep it at 3, Barbara. So I'm gonna let you off the hook on that one. So Debbie, Steve, and Margit. I'll make sure you all have contact information with each other, and I will leave it to you to schedule some chit chat time to sort that out. Shout out to Tom Ferran and Darn, who ponied up $150 in advance this week to pay for that, and shout out and pat on my own back for convincing my board to drop $150 into the kitty from Kenilworth Forest. So hopefully that committee will consider both of those appropriate, whatever that strategy is going to be. It's important that that committee move fairly quickly and make some recommendations. We can handle that digitally at this point in time because, as we have stated, it's important in the funding process to make sure that we can get everybody, get our funders, we can say with a straight face that's factual that our board members have skin in the game of some amount. Sharon.
Yeah, can I say to the executive committee, when I take this to Easton Valley, that we keep the legacy neighborhoods kind of, so when I go and ask for money, I can be specific of why we're asking for it other than we work hard. I'm going to need a little bit of convincing. I mean, last time I put my own personal money in, but I'd like to get Easton Valley more engaged. I mean, they know I make reports, but I think they're really going to need to see what the money's going towards to justify coming out.
So I think we make that the responsibility of the committee. So the committee is going to kick the ideas around the donations versus dues and the importance of it. And of course, the funding team will help that committee out with why it's so important that we can explain that to our funders, and the overall working group that's working on this can of course provide all the reasons why funding is going to be good for East End Valley and every other neighborhood. So hopefully it'll be a compelling story, Sharon.
That's not kind of what I said, but kind of.
Okay. Any other questions on agenda item 1? Looking for hands. Somebody's got something in the chat. Let me make sure I got that. Oh, that's Mr. Edge has a conflict fairly early in the game. Okay, then let's move along. What's up here? We get right to the oral update and Patrick. So Patrick, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I apologize to the board that I don't have anything in writing. As Rick said, I spent the last more than a week in Baltimore. Got out of it, got a brand new granddaughter, but lost a mother-in-law. So it was quite a bittersweet week, and still trying to recover from all of that. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. As you know, because you approved it, we have a new CAN working committee. This working committee has met, I believe, 3 times now. We divided the committee into 2 working groups. The fundraising working group, which is exploring funding sources, and the business plan documents working group, which is supplying documents to support the fundraising effort. And those 2 working groups have met at least 2 or 3 times since the special board meeting. So I'll start with the funding working group. It's making a 2-prong approach to fundraising. The first prong is secondary funding, which is initially looking at getting small local funding to build a record of support from grants before pursuing larger grants. Our consultant, Michael Sykes, said that was an important first step, because larger funding organizations will be looking for that kind of support in terms of determining whether or not it wants to work with us on getting a grant. So, for example, we're looking at the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation Collaborative Problem Solving Grants, and also preparing a list of local individuals who have the financial wherewithal to make a significant donation. On the higher level, with the help of our consultant, we're identifying large national funding sources such as Lowe's, Bank of America, PNC Bank, and we're making initial contacts with them. Our consultant is also is putting together a comprehensive list of big national funders that we can look into. Also, we're going to determine if the North Carolina Community Block Grant has discretionary funds available for community-based organizations. Usually the community development block grants that you would get through, say, the city of Asheville or Buncombe County would be very narrowly focused. But sometimes the state has more discretionary funds that would be available. We're looking to limit the initial funding to hire an executive director, which we're looking probably would be between $70,000 and $100,000, while continuing to pursue more significant multi-year funding. Some of the challenges, the funding cycles for local grants are being delayed or paused due to high staff turnover. Because of our current financial situation, no dues required and no other substantial funding sources, funders will look at CAN as potentially a financial risk, why we're going to formed that special committee to look into whether or not we ask our neighborhood associations to pay dues or at least make donations. Funding sources or many funders use a scoring system to award grants, and one of those scoring criteria is equity. And we have some work to do in terms of proving that CAN is a equitable organization. We certainly are not viewed as being in any way, shape, or form racist, but we do need to be prepared to respond to any questions regarding equity in the course of obtaining funding. The business plan documents working group, we're researching and writing a job description for a nonprofit community-based executive director. We've developed a new CAN budget calculator that shows budget needs and expectations on an annual basis. It can be easily updated. And we're developing a multi-year business plan with that phases in staff as funding is secured. And we're writing revised business plans to meet specific goals of a funder. Current recommendations, compiling a demographic census data on CAN membership to demonstrate that CAN's accomplishments benefit a diversity of households, including low-income renters and VIPOC communities. We're beginning an effort to get stronger support feedback from our legacy neighborhoods by attending legacy neighborhood meetings and searching for an influential person of color to guide us in building these relationships with the VIPOC neighborhoods, businesses, and charitable organizations. And we're applying for coaching from the NC Pathways and nonprofit management, and developing a multi-year business plan that phases of the staff as funding secured. Working committee next steps. We're receiving coaching and attend training for nonprofit development from WNC Pathways, as I just mentioned. Apply to small grants to establish large grant readiness. Continue outreach to large grant closely aligned with CAN's long-term budget needs. Develop a strategy for private funding outreach and appoint a CAN fundraiser. Consult the treasurer to establish a solicitor's license for 501c3 fundraising, and coordinating with a business plan working group to refine the business plan, seeking additional professional support as needed. So with that in mind, I will take any questions or comments that anyone has.
Patrick, this is Tom. I've got a couple of questions. Is Michael, who we met in a Zoom in 22, is Michael the consultant?
Yes.
And is Michael, are we anticipating if we get funding that Michael will be be offered the executive director position?
No.
No.
He does not. He's retired, and he's happily retired,
And doesn't want to get out of
No.
retirement.
no.
So are we paying somebody now? Are we paying the consultant?
Right now, we're not paying him anything. My understanding is he's going to do as much of this work as possible free of charge. If there comes a time where he feels it's necessary to bill us, he'll let us know in advance. But he is so excited about this effort and working with us that my guess is he's not going to end up charging us anything. If anything, it'll be a very minimal charge.
Thank you, Patrick.
Steve Rasmussen?
Patrick, first, I just want to clarify, did you say that part of the plan is to hire a professional fundraiser?
Well, that's something that that is a possibility, but I really think that the fundraising working group has done a phenomenal job, and they're just chugging along. And I have my faith in them to come up with the funding, but you know, down the road we may have to approach that possibility. But I don't think we're there or anywhere near that now.
Okay, well, my second part of my question is, might well, maybe even a volunteer we could find be helpful in fundraising within CAN, like we're talking about just immediately. You know, somebody with experience setting up donation campaigns, that sort of thing.
I'll let Leanna address that.
I apologize. My toddler is talking to me at the same time, so I caught the second half of your question. Steve, do you mind restating it?
I'm just thinking that as part of the new committee's work, trying to get donations or dues from you know, neighborhood associations, if maybe somebody within CAN with fundraising experience can help us with that, even before we talk about hiring a professional fundraiser, you know, setting up campaigns that people like.
Sure. So I will certainly say that it's true for the Kenilworth Residents Association that we've had a tremendous amount of luck reaching out to nonprofits that have their own development directors and getting some preliminary advice and guidance on how to locally fundraise through letter writing campaigns, through direct outreach, by hosting smaller events with large potential funders. And so I certainly think that we can reach out to those partner nonprofits for which CAN already has a relationship and see if we can get some feedback on how their development directors approach fundraising, and then also reach out to our neighborhood associations to see if there are any residents with professional fundraising backgrounds to assist CAN in their effort. I would also just say, you know, preliminarily, as far as trying to achieve small grant funding to demonstrate some level of financial fitness so that we can be eligible for larger grants, we may also strategically plan to hire consultants as a show of our financial capabilities and ability to contract services. Whether or not that's a fundraiser or maybe having a significant website update, there are some steps towards demonstrating financial fitness that would benefit us to reach out to paid consultants. And those smaller grants, say, for instance, a grant that's somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000, which we can't necessarily piggy bank, we could apply for with the specific intent of hiring consultants to further us in our development for a professional paid staff. So we can kind of think about it from those two vantage points along the way. So I would offer that initially we'll probably be reaching out to people for those free services and advice. And if that advice leads us to a direction where a professional consultant is something that we might consider, then we would use those small grant awards towards the payment of those services. And then I'm going to unmute so you don't hear my kids.
Well, thank you very much. It sounds like you're the expert. So that's a great relief to me. All right.
The fundraising committee is not necessarily professional, but we are dogged in our approach to date.
Okay,
Alan?
are there any other questions?
Steve might have a question. His hand was up.
No, he already had his.
Okay.
You're next.
Quick response. I'm involved in a capital campaign right now. And it's with the JCC here in town. And one of the things, I'm also on the board there. And one of the things that we were asked to do as board members was to show not any specified amount, but I just wanted to reinforce what was said earlier, that board members show some degree of support by putting something up on behalf of their neighborhood association to show that we're all involved in this and we all want to make this happen. And you know, the amount might be nominal. We don't have to identify how much each neighborhood is giving, but just to say that we're all doing something. So, and there perhaps may be other ways to, you know, by contributing time versus money. So it's something to think about. But Rick, you mentioned this earlier, and Patrick, so I just wanted to reinforce that message.
Thanks, Alan. That's great.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll just say that, reiterate that the both the working groups and the committee as a whole has been doing terrific work. And, you know, it might be, it's not going to be a quick fix, but the 6 people that are on this committee are very, very dedicated, and they're in it for the long haul. And I think every board member and every neighborhood association can be proud of the work that this committee is doing. So with that, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Next is thoughts and questions on the homeless committee update. So I'll take thoughts and questions on what I already published, and then maybe a few minutes or sentences on the National Alliance to End Homeless recommendations that hit the public on the 20th and hit City Council yesterday and hit the Homeless Initiative Commission today for 6+ hours. So questions, comments?
I think you already got my comments, Rick. My phone blew up. I got started getting calls early this morning. People are not, it's the same old, so they feel like their tax money was wasted. But anyway, I sent you the article and the information about the editorial in Sunday's paper. And I think all of us could take a look at what that editorial said, and perhaps I'm going to try to find the book. I don't know if it's available in Asheville or not, but anyway, I just feel like that we've got a crisis and we keep shoveling the same thing to fix the crisis, and it hasn't been fixed. So I just have a problem with it.
Barbara, did you read the Alliance report?
I did. Yes, indeedy. I got it from Maggie Burleson. I got it 2 days ago. And I was not impressed.
Not impressed.
Not impressed. It was the same thing that they've been trying in other cities across the US, and it isn't working. And there's got to be, maybe we're missing something. Maybe I'm missing something. I will go back and read it again, Rick, and be sure that I didn't skip over something or misunderstand something. But the shelters they keep saying we don't have enough room, yet Scott Rogers keeps telling some of us with Bailey and several others that, yeah, they have more than enough room, that some people don't want to come into shelters. That did not appear to be being dealt with in this report. Those that don't want help, and I have talked to them here in Hall Creek where they camp in here. So I guess maybe I missed something. If I did, I apologize. I'll go back and read it again, but I still feel like it's the same old, same old. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Sharon.
Yeah, I printed all of it and waded through it. And unfortunately, I had a problem and I left the council meeting and I wanted to attend that NIH, the board you're on, Rick, to see how you're disseminating all this information. It is a lot to swallow. I think the city's on a trajectory to do it. And we just have to see how they're going to do it. I see a lot of issues with, you know, at the missing middle type of thing that we've got. I mean, I think we're all going to have to chew this as it comes up, this elephant part that comes up. We're going to have to chew it as it comes through, because having listened to the whole, what I did listen to, what I've read, it's just going to be a lot to wade through with this city, and how they're going to manage to do this is going to be anybody's guess at this point in time. But basically why I raised my hand is that the city has been working with me on my commercial properties. And I have another commercial property that's full of the homeless. And I have told them several times that the people that they're connecting me to, that they are paying money to, are not calling me back. So the city has hired a part-time social worker, and Stephanie is her name, and Darlene, who works for Public Works, and NCDOT and Ben Woody have been helping me, and I've had more help than I've ever had, clean up my encampments. And they're not cleaning all of them up, but they're cleaning part of it up. And I have told Ben that the organizations that they're paying to help these people get out of their tents when I'm kicking them out of their camping area are not showing up, not returning my calls. And he said that the city of Asheville needs to deal with that. They should be responding to it. And so I'm just bypassing those people that I've been told the city is paying to help, and going straight to my connections with the city, and they are helping me. So how is this going to work out in this big form? I have no idea, but we have to do something. But right now it's working in my little tiny world.
Good.
You know, as opposed to it not working for several years.
Yep. Thanks. That's really great. Now, Stephen Edge, your hand was up, then it went away. Are you okay?
Yeah, I am. Sorry, I didn't mean to take it away. Thank you.
Okay.
I
Helen.
guess I second
Okay,
what I heard from the first lady. I forget her name, about it's the other half that doesn't really get mentioned. The people that don't want support, that don't want housing, doesn't really get addressed. And I think I'm in East-West Asheville, so more towards the river part of West Asheville. And we definitely acknowledge that's one of the biggest challenges in that area is the people that choose not to be housed, regardless of the number of open beds that exist. And then second piece is something that I've said all along, is I continue to be disappointed in the lack of accountability with Buncombe County, who owns the funding for Health and Human Services. And we keep on talking city, but the tax funding for this fundamentally resides in Buncombe County. And I continually see them not step up into that leadership role.
Thanks, Stephen.
Rick?
Helen.
I did attend that meeting, and I also thank Carolyn and John for attending it. And a couple of the issues that you mentioned, they did cover some of those things. For example, they said we have a lot of services right now, but nothing is coordinated. And so the city and the county need to work together with the nonprofits, and they all need to work towards one common goal, which right now they're not. They're all running around doing whatever they want to do. And the HIAC committee is going to be the governing body of the COC. And so since we have a position and a voice on HIAC now with Rick, thank you very much for serving, we have a voice there that we can influence and report back, and it will be heard, and they are the governing body. So the city has to be paying attention to them. So if people are having a problem, I would suggest you either attend those HIAC meetings on there, and I think they're by Zoom, although I'm not 100% sure, or at least submit comments to them so that whatever your issue is being heard, so these people can all start ultimately working together. And Buncombe County did say in that meeting that they have launched their little van, which is they want responses to not only be the police, but to be other folks that can actually do something like wound care or whatever else issue a person has. And this van started about a month ago. At this point, there's only 4 people that are hired into that section, but this service has now been launched. So there is an actual county response going out there that's not the fire truck, the very expensive services that are currently being utilized. The people that don't want to go into help was not really addressed because that becomes a political one. She did state clearly that politics should not get in the way of policy. And so we all need to advocate for that with our respective council people, that they can't just bow down. If this is the policy, then politics cannot get in the way of it. This is the policy, we've got to stick with it. And we have to pressure our council not to just cave in all the time. And because if it's only done on politics, then we're never going to get anywhere. And I think that was the main things. The main thing was that everything's uncoordinated. Oh, and the fact on the beds, there are not sufficient beds. In that, Scott Rogers always says there are, but the fact of the matter is the only time they take everybody, they have a lot of conditions, and the only time they take everybody is during Code Purple. So during Code Purple, they drop all their rules. When Code Purple's not on, they have all their rules. So, you know, you got a dog, you're drunk, you're on drugs, you got all these issues, they will not take you. So they'll only take you on Code Purple. So there is this gap of people that do want to go in, but they've all got issues. So that is what they are saying, that we need a shelter that is low barrier all the time and not just during Code Purple. And none of the nonprofits, the rescue or Scott Rogers thing, they will not accept, you know, they don't want to budge on that. They have their rules and they're sticking with them. And she also said we do need to get a lot more help and funding from the VA since they're so big here. And so I presume that'll happen on a higher level. I think that's everything that I can offer on that subject.
Thanks, Ellen. Alan.
I attended the meeting also. I was impressed with the number of people who were in attendance. I actually had to sit in the overflow area. One of the points, a couple things I want to reinforce what Helen said, that one of the problems that this city has is the fact that so many nonprofits are out there, but they're not coordinating their efforts together. They haven't been able to chain them together to work collectively. I've been working with Rescue Mission for about 12 or 13 years, serving meals there. And it is not a low barrier shelter, unfortunately. And if you're not clean, you're not going to get a bed there. And most of their beds are already taken anyways. We do serve meals for the street people, and generally about 60 to 90 meals every time I've been there, depending on what the weather's like. But if you don't have a bed inside, you're not going to get a meal inside. They've had too many security issues in the past at Rescue Mission that they don't want to serve meals inside for the folks on the street. I thought it was kind of it was a blow at the city, but it had to be stated. One of the problems that Asheville has is this form of government. And it's a city manager based government, not controlled by a mayor, which they emphasized yesterday. And that has created some problems in the past. And hopefully they can work through that going forward. It seems like they've put together a number of, I think there were over a couple dozen recommendations that were in the 54-page report that came out earlier this week. So even if they can achieve some of those, I think it will be a win. But they've got a lot of work ahead of them. The city does, that is. And,
Thanks, Alan.
and also one more thing, and being able to work collectively with the county more than just on paper, but really with resources will be more than the most important.
Okay, Sharon, and then I'm gonna make a couple of statements and that sort of thing. So Sharon, go ahead again.
Yeah, real quick on the county. A woman came up and introduced herself to Alan and I when she was handing out the cards for the opioid settlement community input survey. Her name is Victoria Reichard, and she's in a new position called Behavioral Health Manager with Buncombe County. And I asked her, maybe Alan asked her if she was familiar with CAN, and she was not. And it sounds like she's not familiar with very much of the city at all. So I wrote down CAN, Coalition Asheville Neighborhood, on a Post-it and handed it to her and said, if she has any information through the county that she wants to send to us, to send it through our website. So maybe she'll do it, maybe she won't, but she's a brand new employee and it sounds like she's brand new to the interaction with the county and the city. So I just wanted to put that out there.
So thanks for doing that, Sharon. She's already contacted us.
Oh, good, she did.
And yeah, and she's offered to come to some future meeting of a committee or whatever to talk about that. So, you know, before we went live on recording, Mike Lewis is still there, right? There he is. He started asking me questions about this, you know, and I spent 6+ hours with NAEH and HIAC today trying to make sense of all this and what that is. And I said to him, Mike, we could spend a whole 3-hour meeting going through that. So let me propose that specifically as it relates to those recommendations and CAN's role in those recommendations, we'll try to find a time where those of you who are most interested in this could attend another Zoom. But let me say that CAN has a spot in the working groups that are going to make the biggest impact. So this whole thing is going to be torn up and reinvented, which was the top recommendation, to try to get away from all these organizations going in their own direction and all that. There's going to be new governance and new rules and new metrics by which we measure the providers to see if they're actually doing what they're getting their money to do. And I volunteered myself and CAN to be in that working group. And I will be doing that work remotely. I also volunteered CAN to be engaged in what they're calling efficient shelters, which relates to what a couple of people said about some of the claims that the shelter providers make, that they've got all the beds that they ever need, but they don't really let everybody in. And frankly, what I've learned from reading and talking to people, there are people who desire to be sheltered in the long term and get back into housing, who just can't stand to sleep on a cot in the middle of a room with 30 other people. And you have to respect that of them, that they can't sleep there, they're afraid of the people who are around them and all that stuff. And when some of our existing providers say they have all the beds they ever need, they're talking about 30 or 40 cots in the middle of a room where the lights are on all night long. So there is a lot to unpack, but CAN can have a big role in determining the direction this stuff goes forward. And we can put several people on working groups who will be making recommendations on how to make this more effective and get all these groups coordinated. And that will be a lot of the work. Mike.
I guess some of those people have never slept in an open bay barracks, but I've got the list of recommendations, but I do not have a link to the report. Would you send it to me, please?
It's on the CAN website, Mike, right under meetings.
Under meeting? Okay, all right.
Yep, I added it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I know Patrick has a short time slot before you still have to exit at 6. Is that correct, Patrick?
Yes.
So I'm gonna come back to noise after that, but I'm gonna let Patrick take questions about city staff projects.
So as we're undertaking these the fundraising activities for the future CAN, I think Rick indicated at our special meeting that we will be limited in terms of the amount of work that the executive committee can take on. So as far as government relations, there are 2 things that we're involved with right now. One is the UDO amendments related to the new neighborhood meeting regulations. And I wrote the board an update on that before Christmas, explaining where we are with that and the timeline. So I won't go into that in any more depth. However, what I would ask is for those board members who are signed up for Simplicity to get notifications, if they get notifications of a neighborhood meeting in their neighborhood area, to please let me know. And then if the neighborhood meeting is held, let me know how that meeting went so we can sort of keep track of those meetings. When I last spoke to Chris Collins, there had only been one development proposal come through under the new regulations. And for some reason that was put on hold. So I don't think the neighborhood meeting was ever held. The only other one I know of is there was a neighborhood meeting involving the relocation and rebuild of the downtown YMCA. And I don't know if anyone from Darn went to that meeting, but if they did, please let me know how that went. The other initiative is missing middle housing. And back when we were had some meetings with the mayor, the city manager, and planning staff over open space, the missing middle housing issue came up. And hold on one second.
You know, the dogs just don't honor our Zooms.
Yeah,
I don't
I know.
understand it.
Hey.
I don't know anything about Robert's Rules of Order.
So in any event, in those discussions, the city committed to giving CAN a seat on any missing middle housing initiative. So we've followed that up with some communications with staff, and Liana and I have a meeting scheduled with staff. It's just really more of a fact-finding meeting to gather information on their timeline and also request the contract that I think they've signed now with Opticos, which is the consultant that's going to be doing the research and consulting work for the city and making recommendations to the city council. So with that, I'll entertain any questions that anybody has.
Yeah, Patrick, could you explain what's meant in the section you were talking about the city's efforts to hire an urban forester? And you said they've had 4 applicants, but they withdrew when they found out about the exercise. And I assume that doesn't mean climbing trees. What kind of exercise was that scared them off?
Well, I'm not sure that this is directly related to the missing middle housing thing, but,
No,
but,
just
but,
in your report.
yeah, okay, so, the city gave the 4 applicants for the urban forester position an exercise to do on fee and lieu. And our guess is that the applicants figured that the city wasn't really interested in preserving tree canopy, but looking at how much money they can generate in the fee and lieu portion of the tree canopy preservation ordinance. They redid the exercise, and I think those 4 applicants are back. And my understanding is that they have narrowed the search to 1, and will probably be announcing that within a matter of weeks.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all.
Wait a minute, wait.
I have a
Sharon?
quick question. Is Vidilla working, when you say meeting with staff, is that Chris Vidilla and whomever the new contract person is, or do you know who you're meeting with?
Vidilla and Ben Woody.
Oh, and Ben. Thank you.
Yep. Ben as the acting director
PUD.
of planning and urban design. Yes.
Okay, any other questions for Patrick? Okay, let's move on to
Right.
noise.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Patrick.
So, any questions about what's going on in the world of noise? I showed you the annual report. That's what's on the website. It's the annual report from the Noise Advisory Board. We've tackled a couple things with strong recommendations. We're trying to help out our members who live downtown, who get dumpsters banged open at 5 a.m. in the morning, by asking for the city to form a task force, including city staff, our neighbors and businesses downtown, to see if they can come up with a strategy where there aren't a half a dozen waste haulers trying to all get to the same alley at the same time, which is why they need to start at 5 o'clock in the morning. I discussed that with Ben Woody and explained that I had tried to gain the support of Public Works, but the primary person was on maternity leave and then reduced like down to 10 hours a week, and she and I just couldn't connect before we had to submit our report. So we're working on that. And again, for the downtown folks, we're working on new modifications to the noise ordinance that would more effectively treat vehicles that choose to circle the downtown, making huge volumes of noise, because the only thing that was in the noise ordinance was the state statute that said you had to have an appropriate muffler system as installed by the manufacturer and that sort of thing. And finally, we're working on, there's a fair amount of complaints that are found to be no violation under the current decibel limits, which, for those of you who are involved in CAN's effort on the noise ordinance, we strongly opposed how high those limits were. And so we're going to take another run at that by making measurements inside the complainant's homes and comparing that to standards that show how loud that is from a practical standpoint. Is it as loud as a vacuum cleaner running all day long? Is it as loud as 2 people standing 3 feet away from you having a conversation, to try to make a case for why it's really a negative impact on the health and property values and that sort of thing. So that's what's going on in the noise front. I'm fairly happy as being the vice chair of the Noise Advisory Board that we have a better membership now than we used to have. We ejected a couple of people who didn't really do any work and who were probably there just to try to stop us from doing certain things that would impact certain industries. And I think we have a more well-rounded board now that is really looking out for the best possible solution. Anybody got any questions on that one?
Rick, I've got a question, Tom. Does your board get information from the city in terms of how many complaints are validated and as well as enforcement fines, how many fines are being paid?
All of that is on the Noise Advisory Board website. We get
Okay.
that every single month.
Okay,
And now that we've been at it for more than a year, we get a dashboard that shows how we're doing compared to the same month last year, which is really important because this is all supposed to be about reducing excess noise. And one possible measure of whether we're succeeding in reducing excess noise is a reduction in complaints. And unfortunately, in the first year, we have done nothing to reduce complaints, which is why a couple of these actions should actually yield that. I'd say one more thing for people. By far, the largest percentage of complaints come from multifamily housing, which none of you live in as far as I know you. Oh, it's your neighbor upstairs, it's the kids running down the hall, it's all that kind of stuff. That is the largest percentage of complaints. And obviously the most unique ones and the hardest ones to solve on a permanent basis, since renters turn over in multifamily housing at a fairly high rate.
and Rick, on the vehicle noise, did you say that the board is making a recommendation to the city about doing something specific about vehicle noise?
Yep. Just read what I posted, Tom.
Okay.
As a reminder for those of you who aren't familiar with the boards and commissions process, we can't really do anything other than tell city council what they need to do and badger them into telling the city manager to let us do it. That's how that system works today. And I promise you, I will badger city council members to get them to do what we have asked them we need to do, and to pass that on to the city manager, who at least one of the assistant city managers is 100% in support of the things that we want to drive change in. So as much as I'm used to getting things done in a few weeks, I have learned how to take a deep breath, realize that this actually needs to make it onto the city council agenda, and then city council needs to vote on those things to tell city manager to follow the recommendations we have. And I will be pestering our city council liaison every month to make that happen.
One last question, Rick. Do you have any confidence that APD will follow through, can follow through on vehicle noise downtown?
I think they can, because I think we have non-emergency strategies with the vehicle noise team that would, if implemented, would scare off some of those habitual offenders who like to play loud music out of their vehicles or rev their engines or that sort of thing. You know, I think there are good examples from both Knoxville and Greenville on how to make that not a popular thing to do anymore. And it doesn't mean that that APD needs to be on call 24/7. It means they need to be present a few times to show as a deterrent. So I'm hopeful that that can make a difference, because that's how it's worked under city.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Dan?
Hey, on a case study for all of our neighborhoods, but especially Montford, I did want to tell you the Hazel Robinson Amphitheater is run by the Montford Park Players, which is a nonprofit. A couple years ago, I guess in the summer of 2021, they rented out their space, or sublet maybe, for a for-profit commercial amplified music, and there was a lot of pushback in our neighborhood, especially the people that lived in that part of where the Hazel Robinson Amphitheater is. Rick, I did talk to the guy that you steered me towards. He and I have sat. We're going to sit with the city of Asheville February 6th, I believe it is, to talk about what's their long-term vision. The city owns the Hazel Robinson Amphitheater and leases it to the Montfort Park players for $1 a year. So Montfort wants to make more money. They're a nonprofit. Who doesn't want to make more money? But there's certain ways to do it. And, Rick made the point that if we don't, I live far enough away, I don't hear the music, but the people that live and are impacted by it, they're our constituents, and there are people that we need to listen to and to try to find solutions for. So I throw that out there only from the standpoint of it is Montfort, but noise is a major factor. So stay tuned on that one.
Yeah, so I was going to wait and let you bring that up, Dan. Thank you. The Noise Advisory Board is sort of monitoring this, trying to guide, trying to help people in the right direction, but it may come back through that channel to this group, because I'd ask everybody here to just think about their favorite Asheville park that they like to go to and take a walk with their dog or enjoy something. If the city allows for-profit organizations to come up with an idea and do what they want in your parks, is that something you really want them to do? So this could set a dangerous precedent. Now, the people who are in favor of it will say, well, there's already an amphitheater there and there's already performances there, but they're not amplified. And they're not going to attract 1,500 people from out of town who are going to be bussed in, who are going to enjoy a concert like we all like to enjoy concerts when we get to go. So there's the noise aspect, which I think, thank you, Dan, for bringing that up, because it's not really a majority vote of a neighborhood. It's whether the neighborhood will represent those who would be impacted by it. But also, these guys, the promoters, really want it to be rezoned in some way so that they can run for-profit events. And I think we all need to think about whether we want the city to make that kind of step, because then why not anywhere? Okay, any more noise questions? I don't see any new business. Joe Ficola.
Okay. Yeah. If we hire or even if we don't hire an executive director, we're still going to need, according to our bylaws, a chair, a vice chair, a secretary, and a treasurer, which will still all be volunteers, unless the bylaws themselves change. So I think that needs to be looked at before March and May meetings.
So that, Joe, that's the executive committee constructed committee to prepare for what we would do if we didn't have line of sight to paid staff, because with line of sight to paid staff comes a full revamp of the bylaws anyway, right? Because there's nothing in the bylaws that deals with paid staff. So EC needs to reach out to the board and put a committee together to start working on it. So thanks for reminding me.
Okay.
Helen.
I'd like to congratulate Leanna Hibbert on now being the president of the Kenilworth Neighborhood Association, and also to Steve Joyner, who's now the president of the Bowcatcher Heights Neighborhood Association. Which
Wait a minute, he's shaking his head. He's going to speak.
Off mute.
Still muted, Steve.
You're muted.
Forgive my voice. I'm sick. My Caribbean vacation left me with a cold.
Yikes.
I just want to correct one thing. I'm on the board of directors of Bowcatcher Heights. I'm not the president, nor did I.
Apologize, I got the terminology wrong.
Are you the
It's now in
designated?
Bowcatcher Heights as opposed to
Yeah,
Kent.
I'm the designated liaison. Yes.
All right.
Correcting me.
So we're now at 20 strong. And if only Sophie or Norma would agree to join, we could be at 21, which is a really nice number if you play blackjack. You know, that would, at some point in the day, we would just love to have you guys here as a voting member of our team. And even if neither Norma or Sophie decide to appoint somebody to CAN, we'd still love to reach out to you guys with our business plan for paid for professional staff to make sure that you can see how, well, A, what our ideas are, but tell us what we're missing that would make a big impact to Shiloh. I think that would just be huge. Sharon.
Yeah, I have a question to Steve, for a NAC question. I'm the 28805 representative for NAC. And I have you down, I thought, as Kenilworth Forest. Is Bowcatcher Heights a new neighborhood? I don't have it on my list of 28805 neighborhoods.
It's not a new neighborhood. It's 3 years old since it became resident run rather than the development company that started it.
Okay, so you've it's formalized with the city of Asheville, and somehow it's just not on my list.
Right. Well,
Okay.
that's recently done. So I don't think they've updated that yet.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Liana.
You know, I do want to mention one ongoing project that came up in conversation with Christina Israel when Patrick and I met with her to just reestablish the relationship with that department as new staffing came in. We became aware that the UDO notifications are being sent out to the city's very much outdated list of neighborhood associations. And Christina expressed some difficulty, excuse me, hold on, Frankie, I'll be there in a minute. Some difficulties in getting responses from neighborhood organizations that don't necessarily update their records. And maybe perhaps at some point in their lives, if they move or those relationships with the city sour, are disinclined to respond to city outreach to update those records. So what we are doing right now at this time is with Helen's support, I have received the GIS map for neighborhood organizations, and I have created a methodology to verify all those neighborhood organizations and have begun to also reach out to non-CAN board to see if their information is up to date. And also secondarily, see if they're interested in joining CAN. And this will benefit the CAN working group as we continue to build a larger coalition working towards this professional staff. I don't anticipate that it's going to happen very quickly because we're working on other issues like grant writing and getting technical support from WNC Pathways. But little by little, bit by bit, we're going through those 76 neighborhood associations that are identified on that GIS map, looking to see if they are currently active and their information is up to date. And we hope to have that done by late spring. And we'll also be updating that with the city. So the city has an up-to-date list of neighborhood organizations when UDO notifications go out. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other new business? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Okay, I had one comment, Rick.
Okay.
I wanted to thank you for inviting us, and I hope I have this right, to be part of CAN. We will help in any way. The Shiloh Community Association will help in any way we can. We are in the midst of doing a lot of things, and we don't have paid staff, so we're all volunteers. So it is really because of the resource center and everything that we are in, we are so caught up in that and trying to get that, to go. But we're willing to help in any way we can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else that I failed to pay attention to? My apologies. All right, I saw many hands in favor of adjournment. So unless someone raises their hand and says stop, then I'm going to call this meeting to a close. And we're going to see you all again in a little over 60 days at the March time.
I really like that original dress you picked.
All right, everybody have a great night. I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a little too late for that.